Yeah.
Okay, we have a resolution regarding the meeting of the council convened at 10 o'clock a.m. at the Reeve Carl Spencer as chairman. Do I have a mover?
Sure.
Ernie? Seconder? Robert? All in favor? Carried.
Your first motion, Jim. I feel proud.
Oh, shoot.
Scribbles on there.
No, it's okay. Okay. We have a resolution that made as a result of the regular council meeting agenda of the January 13th, 23 be approved as present with the following amendments and additions.
There's a letter from the town representative.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Holy crap. I'm sorry, I can't read
No,
your
that's
writing.
okay. Request to extend road 111 west.
Oh,
Sorry, 111 north to the
111
west.
north.
What she said.
Yes, a mover.
I'll move it.
Seconder. All in favor? Carried.
In the future, I'll be able to type this in and then we can all read it.
She must have heard because your writing's better than that as rules.
I was rushed. It always looks
Oh, you kind of just
it
look.
always looks like that.
Looks like my writing.
Okay. Okay. John, that the minutes of the regular meeting held December 9th, 2022 be adopted into the curriculate.
Adopted circulated.
Curriculated. I have a mover. Seconder.
Sure.
All in favor? Carried.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah. Fruit cut off is dry. Yeah, well, I guess that's very well, we need to run.
From you?
I know,
Those are the
but the
minutes.
turn is, but
Oh, okay.
the hydrant's not fixed, we'll go, the shut off is off. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe. Excuse me. Okay, we have a resolution. Council agrees to approve the December 2022 financial statement. Do I have a mover? Ernie? Seconder?
Second.
Dave? All agree? Carried. Okay, council approves the accounts for the month and the amount as follows. December 2022 general. $1,328,622.99 for general, and water 2,149.68. I have a mover, Robert. Seconder, Earl. Carried. Oh, all in favor? Just vote skip. Carried.
You can sign that, or is this a wreath? All those,
On all these? Okay.
sorry.
All those on. Alrighty. Oh, this is for, yeah. I read, do you want to just pass it around, or I read it already?
Yeah, if anyone wants to.
Anyone wants to
You're welcome
tile
to.
thing?
There's a resolution if you guys would like to approve it.
You wanna see that? You like to see that? You guys wanna see this? You see the maps of the drainage where?
Oh, I got it on here, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody saw it? Okay. Has a resolution that the council approves or declines the tile drainage application as presented by Impact Tile Drainage on January 13th, 2023. Do I have a mover? Robert Still. Seconder?
So if you approve it, if you wouldn't mind just putting a line through declines, because I don't,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
just choose one or the other and.
All in favor?
And then
Carried. Hey. Excuse me.
If I pay attention. Yeah.
would anyone like to attend the virtual training for, there's a fee for the one in February. If anyone wants
Oh, I
to
got
attend
that.
the Brandon session, it takes place February 17th. If that's the case, we'll need to pass a resolution for somebody to go, like for any council members to go.
Right.
If council is willing to just attend virtually, then we can just allow everyone to pay the fee to attend virtually, and there won't be any mileage or meals or anything.
Right. So does anybody,
Which one's that work here? They're all-
that's for the
That's
Well,
the
that,
bulletin number 38, or sorry,
38,
39.
yeah, 2039,
39.
39?
yeah.
You see there's a fee or something?
Yes, $75 plus GST for registration.
Okay.
So we can cover that for anyone that wants to attend virtually. But if you want to travel there and have meals and mileage, then we should pass a resolution to say that the council agrees to pay whomever to attend.
Yeah, it's in Brandon, that's
Yeah.
Victoria. So, it's just a one day.
Yep. And I'm not sure, like, it does provide a little bit of information as to what will be reviewed, but it doesn't have an agenda or anything, so. Virtually, it's March 2nd and March 3rd.
March 2nd or both together? The 2 days or
March 2nd and again on March 3rd.
those 2 days?
So there's two different options.
This is not a mandatory thing, is that correct?
That's right, no, it's offered by AMM and Municipal Relations Province.
So does anybody wanna go?
Maybe it's missed, sorry.
But that link, the link will be to do this virtually on the, thing when I get home?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right there, so if you
Okay.
want to attend it, but I'll have to register you. That's why I brought it to.
When I get the link, I'll review that and then I'll let you know. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else wanna go virtually or wanna go to attend to it
I'd like to go virtually.
virtually? Okay. So there's Jeff too.
Sure, Jeff,
Yeah. Virtual.
anyone else?
Anybody else?
See for sure, I don't know if I'm
Okay.
busy or not.
If you, yeah, if something comes up and you want to, just let me know.
Okay.
No problem. Thank you.
Go ahead, Rick, let's just sit down. Drainage.
Sure. The Westlake Employment Skills and Services, there's no requirement there. Anybody have any questions or anything? Whoops.
That's 27.5.
7.5.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And there's the Beautiful Plains, 7.6.
Oh, yeah, that's just the letter that went to the minister.
Right.
7.6, oh, the grant.
Why do you normally support this one? What's the reason for it?
What's this, for the community clinic?
Yeah.
We've done that for doctor's recruitment. I'm not sure the number, is it 1,800? Tara?
1500.
And the surrounding municipalities in the town all contribute to that fund for recruiting, we try to get new doctors.
And you're doing it, like, because it's a Neepawa-based clinic, right? So you're just doing it just as part of like the larger community, is that the idea?
Yeah. We've all got money in it. Rosedale owns 23% of that business.
Oh, okay.
Like, it does physically belong to all the partners, and Rosedale shares 23%. And our investment from, I can't remember what year it was, has grown substantially since then because of the additions and other properties we purchased. You'll notice also in your handout of, well, it's supposed to all be on.
It is on there, Ron.
It's here, I went through it, it's here.
Michelle from the group sent a letter about what had been happening at the clinic. Did you read that?
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a
lot of good information there.
Yeah.
They're doing a fantastic job, to be
Oh,
honest.
yeah.
And I don't know what anybody else thinks, but if reduced, our grant is $1,500 for last year, I would like to see that go up. I don't know if anybody else agrees to that statement, but it's nice to see them keep on recruiting
Yeah.
physicians to the area, because there is always a shortage, we know that. And
The area's growing too.
and with this new facility coming, a new hospital app, that's just a win, that's just a win for the area. Like, I don't mean
Yeah.
just maybe, it's a huge win, so.
We need a ton of doctors for this
Yes,
hospital.
I agree, yeah.
That document that you're talking about, should that be listed in the documents, or is it,
That one's on the agenda.
oh, that was on the
Yeah.
agenda?
Yeah, agenda.
That's agenda item number 7.6, and there's 2 attachments below.
Okay, because I'm
Yeah.
only seeing the one attachment, which is the cover letter.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, no, there should be.
Also, it's a summary of events.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so you go to that, some of your events, and it'll give you all the information of what they.
This is the summary that took place during 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So gentlemen, when you figure we should up it a bit,
Um,
what's your?
What's the number based on, Garrett? What is, like, where is it?
I honestly think back when we decided 1,500 was very close to our per capita,
Oh,
but,
That's how it's based, I believe.
yeah, yeah.
On our per capita.
Yeah, and they haven't said, I was at a meeting not 3 weeks ago, there was no mention about upping the money rate, yeah. So I would think this year if we stayed at where we are,
Yeah,
and down the road, maybe it's gonna take more, but I think they're happy.
They're
It's
happy.
so funds in the kitty for recruitment, plus the clinic itself also
right.
funds it, and their doctors are the ones that do the recruiting, so.
Yeah. Well,
Might be a little different now, Dr. Long is retired, but he's still keeping his finger in everything, so,
Well-
which is good.
yeah. Up to you guys.
Do you think it stayed the same then, Robert?
Oh, I never heard him asking for more money for the recruitment. I would move that we,
We leave it at 1,500.
yes.
Well, basically,
Unless
it's
they-
good, as long as we match it from the previous year, they're fine with it, so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with Robert.
Okay, well, when we have a resolution that the council of the RM of Rosedale approves the request to present by the Beautiful Place Community Clinic for the amount of 1,500. To assist them in the physical recruitment in 2022. Do I have a mover? Seconder?
I'll second it.
David Tyler. All in favor? Carried.
Can you shut one more doctor you're assuming? Maybe,
Oh,
Dr. Warren. Yeah, Dr. Warren's got babies.
who's leaving? Dr. Weeps leaving?
No, Dr. Warren's having babies.
Oh, she's having, oh, okay.
Can you short one more doctor?
Their plan is having a person that's not fully
Yeah, to come in.
accredited, yeah, but working towards that.
I was just
Who
reading
can
it.
help out at the clinic, so apparently, if you read that, they hired him already,
Oh, good.
so. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't write it on there, but I believe last year's contribution was $200, just so you know.
Oh, okay. So, Neepawa District Chambers of Commerce, we gave, what, $200 you said?
Yeah, I believe so.
So, do we want to stay at $200?
Was that by the wine or something?
Yeah.
There's different options, it says right in the letter. There's a sponsorship amount, you guys can choose whatever you like.
Yeah.
In fact, I think there's only a couple of spots for wine or sponsorship.
Limited foreign sponsors for wine at 200, and event sponsors amount of $500.
Right.
Includes the 4 event tickets and signing at each table to recognize as event sponsors by the,
Did we do that from the big pot before?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, because it's the chamber, so it's all of Rosedale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would suggest we do what we did.
Leave it the same?
leave it the same?
I'll make that motion.
Yep. Okay. So we'll leave it at $200 then. Moved by Earl Burton. Seconder? Ernie Shore. That the council of the RM of Rosedale approves the request presented by the Neepawa and Area District Chambers of Commerce and Neepawa Tourism for the amount of $200 as a sponsorship for the 2023 annual general meeting. All in favor? Carried. Excuse me.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, new business.
You guys are doing well. Plugging away. So these are the requests that are from the municipal staff, or we can move on to,
I like this side.
Do you want to do that on camera?
Can you see what that's
not
for?
necessarily, it's
The windshield?
in regards to
Yeah.
wages and.
Either one side one's been cracked.
Do you want to move
Yeah,
on to
I was thinking about that as
the
well.
unfinished business with Westlake Employment Skills and Services
Yes.
for a
I guess it's
representative?
if you want.
It don't matter, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And then the last.
Meeting with Dr. Ware.
I want to get that matter.
No.
So this is further information to last meeting.
Yeah.
If you recall, Westlake Employment Skills and Services asked if we had a representative on council or an at-large member that would be willing to sit on the board with Westlake Employment Skills and Services. Now, they'll be further involved with partnership funds and even employment services for the new hospital and things like that in the near future, and they'd like to see if Rosedale would like to have a representative. So I had asked them for more information as to what sort of dedication time and how often they meet and all that stuff. So that information is provided right there if anyone wants to sit on the board.
There you go, Jeff. You would sit on board.
There you go.
Everybody else is, everybody else is sitting on board.
This doesn't seem like a reward. is it?
Oh, it is, trust me. Everybody else
It's
sits on
fine,
board.
yeah, it's all fine.
It's all fun.
So then yes. That sounds like a great idea.
Well, we'll pass our resolution.
Only if you're
Make
comfortable
it
with that.
official.
Well,
Yeah, the vote is government and all that stuff.
That's good.
Okay, we have a resolution that the council agreed to appoint
Actually, railroad is a better word.
Jeff.
Hey, at least that one's close. I gotta drive all the way to Sandy Lake. For one, I'm
Oh, really?
HTS, the snowmobile club for the
Oh, okay.
DE.
Trans-Canada Trail. They have their meetings at Sandy
That's the
Lake.
one.
Because Russell comes
I
from
don't want to
every
spell
weekend.
his name.
Oh,
We can flag, we went into this. Jeff has into the Westlake Environmental Skills and Service Century Board to represent the RM of Rosedale. Do I have a mover?
Sure.
Should be Jeff.
Seconder. Jeff. Jeff Hanson.
Better get you started on.
Well,
Yeah, at least-
welcome, Jeff.
All agreed?
Oh, yes.
Perfect, carried.
You weren't around when we were dealing them all out, right?
Yeah, so.
Good one, Ernie, I like that.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Okay. So, this is the land sale policy that was updated as per the council's request at the last meeting.
Oh, okay. So we have a resolution here of the land sale agreement that we we added in that clause or whatever. What's that again?
So.
Oh, to
What's resale? Right?
resale part, right. So,
That's a third reading for that, Karen?
No, this is a policy, so we just have to pass a resolution to update it as the updates are requested. In fact, yeah, I'll leave it, yeah.
yeah,
I was just gonna say, that's a lengthy resolution for something that you really don't need to include it all. You could just say the council agreed to amend the municipal land sale policy, and then leave it at that.
okay. So we have a resolution that we, the council, amend the municipality land sale policy by adding in the clause. Do I have a mover? Earl Burton, seconder,
I'll second it.
Dave Tudor. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next one is a complaints procedures policy that we went over at last meeting. I don't know if everybody had time to go through it or if they want to take a look at it. Again, there is a clause in there with regards to administration that council, administration keep council informed of the complaints that are received by the office.
Was there not a procedure or policy implemented before this? This is new or just?
This is
updated?
new, yeah,
This
this
is
is
new,
very
okay.
new, yeah. There was never a procedure, so further to the discussion that took place at the last monthly meeting, this was something that I thought would be helpful, just simply because we have a number of requests that come in. They're forwarded right to the council member, and then the council member will address it, and the notice isn't provided to the office, or vice versa. The office receives a complaint and the office deals with it. So this is to try and tie things together with regards to communication. Further to that, it states that all requests or complaints will be addressed within a timely manner. It states 2 working days, 2 business days on there. So that way people understand that once we deal with the request, we will provide them with a response. Whether, like I said, if it's something that the Public Works Department needs to address, then we pass it on. It is something that we're doing right now, but at the same time, if it's in a policy and somebody is complaining about, a lack of response within just a couple of hours, then at least the office and administration and even Public Works Department can say, we're working on it and we will get back to you in the next 2 business days. Kind of gives us a little bit of backup at the office to deal with things in a timely manner and let people know what is expected of us. Quite honestly, it's a transparency thing with the general public.
Right. Is there gonna be are we gonna add something that prioritize complaints? Because we all probably get multiple complaints that are.
Right, and that's sort of part of the reason why I thought this would be a good thing to have. You're exactly right. We have council members calling the Public Works Department because of, numerous, multiple reasons. And some of them, obviously, there's 7 council members. Some of them are more important than others. This policy states that the Public Works Department foreman and the Chief Administrative Officer will actually prioritize. So if 7 requests come into the office from each council member in one day, it is up to the CAO, or like I said, the foreman at the Public Works Department, to decide which are most important and which are not. So it's not up to a council member to say, this beaver dam needs to be cleared out immediately, unless somebody's home is flooding, of course. But
Right.
if that's not the case, that to me is further down the list than if somebody's road was blocked because of snow, or, if it's their only access.
Right.
So if you'd like to table this and have further discussion on it, we can do that too. This isn't intended to be I understand, not everybody, you know, when people come into the office with a complaint, not everybody wants to fill out a form, but it also helps, rather than get a phone call just saying, I'd like to complain about my neighbor, but I don't wanna put it in writing, and I don't wanna give you my name. In the policy, it actually states that if a name and address of the complainant isn't provided, it won't actually be taken seriously, unless, of course, it's an emergency situation.
This is in the package then too, Karen?
Yeah, that's right in the
I'll
policy.
read, I'll table that, and I'll read that,
Sure.
that's all right.
Yeah, we'll table this and bring
It's a
it.
good idea.
Yeah, it is.
I just wanna,
It just helps the staff know what is
Absolutely.
expected of us.
It can't be much of a complaint if you don't want to write your name.
no, really.
Exactly.
Well, we get them all the time,
Yeah,
right?
I know.
No.
And this way, if we put they have to put a signature on it, then it kind of discourages them and say, well, maybe it isn't such a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
So-and-so's doing whatever.
Right.
Yeah, keeps coming to my house.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Should be right back home.
Yeah.
Should get a lot of complaints, but at least this gives us,
Yeah.
the opportunity to policy, I guess.
Absolutely.
Okay, this was added to the agenda. This is a written letter from our hand representative, Janet Scott.
Oh,
Is that something you'd like me to read out, or?
sure.
Okay, no, that's all right. I can do that if you like.
I can read some of it, but some of it I can't.
So if you recall at the last
Yeah.
council meeting, there was an amount provided to the Rosedale representative of the hand committee, Janet Scott. Council issued a check to her, and on January 12th, she's provided this letter. Dear council members, I was quite surprised to receive a check for $700 for my service on the hand board. I have served as a representative on the hand board since 2010 as a Rosedale representative, and 2 years prior as a member at large. To my knowledge, as a rep for Rosedale on the hand board, has not received monetary payment before, so I do not feel right in accepting this money. In the future, I feel that council may consider making a policy regarding the payment of their representatives on boards, if that is what they wish to do. Thanks again for thinking of me in this manner. Yours truly, Janet Scott. And she
Oh, no.
has
Oh,
returned,
no.
she's
She
returned.
puts time into it, going lots of
Yeah,
times.
exactly.
Well, she said to me, it was a very nice gesture,
Yeah.
but when she was approached to be Rosedale's rep, it was to be volunteer. And that's what she feels, you know, she volunteers. And she, don't get me wrong, she enjoys
Yeah.
being part of that committee. And so she's thanking you and I'm thanking you.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of years in there. so-
Yeah, appreciate what she did, so.
Yeah.
So moving forward, as she suggested, is anyone interested in forming a policy for how these representatives are paid? I know we went through this with, you know, in the last couple of meetings, we had to sort of toss things around the table.
Mhm.
My interpretation is sometimes this drags our meetings out longer than they need to be. That's why we have such lengthy meetings. We have policy for this type of thing. It can always be changed. Policy does not lock anything in permanently. It's just one of those things that in the future, the office makes note of when payments are required and when they're sent out. And they're done automatically so that council never has to deliberate over it unless it's brought to your attention by somebody that it needs changing.
Should be a policy on it.
Should we do a table this for the next meeting and develop a policy then? You know, that way it gives us time to absorb it and think about it, I guess, before we
Mhm.
jump in full feet. Just a thought.
We can do that.
That's a good idea. 'Cause it,
Yeah. So we'll table that. We'll get something written up here and we can all ponder on it and then, I think it'd be a good thing, cut our meetings down a bit, whatever.
Some of the stuff, like we go way through too much stuff, but
Yeah.
some of that stuff can be just a policy and it's done, we don't even see it, it's just finished.
And make life simpler.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So with regards to Mr. Koginski's request, I can draft up a resolution, although I have nothing in writing as documentation for the office to keep on file for the future. How would you like to address that?
is it something we can just do, he's gonna do the work for free, we'll just, as Rosedale, do the trail? let him do the work? Can we do that?
Absolutely, but is there something that I can have documentation wise?
So we should get Larry actually to send you a letter or something.
An email, a request?
Email.
I know that council wants to put this through today.
Or text them.
And I understand that, but yeah, a text message saying, you know, a text message is sort of a last resort, but I know
He's
that
around, maybe
Earl's
he'll
initial
send us
request was that
I don't have his number,
this
so.
document to be signed.
We can soon send them a text, we could send it back to us pretty quick. but-
Yeah.
See if you can send us something on email, maybe.
You want to send
I bet you've got.
I
Yeah,
bet Larry doesn't email, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
I'm just saying,
He might surprise you.
but we can
Oh,
forward him,
his wife
I'm
is
thinking he might.
we can forward him at lunchtime, maybe, if that
well,
works.
yeah,
See if
absolutely.
he can
And
get us
then, okay,
something
we'll
today,
table
then.
this for now and then we can pass
Yeah,
it
that's later on,
on
because
to.
it's, because I think, I think it's time factor, if not, he's not in a rush, but he has time right now.
Mhm.
Right,
It is late in his life schedule, so.
right.
And really be in your ward, or I'm not trying to pass the buck here, but you're the one that should be handling that, to be honest.
Well, I think the trail's gonna be a great idea, the fact that Larry's gonna do the work is just a bonus.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we
Oh,
do
yeah.
something, he's just better off
Yeah,
than.
part of contacting him at lunchtime or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you do, so.
And I'm just asking on behalf of the municipality as a whole, because in the future,
Yeah.
if we were ever to look back and he comes to council, then, you know, 20 years down the road and says,
We have
I
something
want-
on record.
yeah.
Okay.
It's
No,
nice
that's
to
no
know
problem.
where the request came from and how it was,
Right.
how it came about, rather than word of mouth.
Okay, no.
We run into that quite often for previous requests, so it's nice to start documenting. Okay. Oh, quite honestly, I don't have a whole lot more, other than if council would like to move in camera with regards to some of the employee
Discussion?
requests.
Yeah, I think we can do that. Okay. Our next thing is at 11, right?
That's right, yeah, we'll be here for 11 o'clock, so.
All right, if you just want to make a motion to go in camera, that'll explain why you turn the camera off, and then I'll come back when you're done.
Okay. Okay, we have a resolution that be it resolved that in accordance with the section 152, brackets 3 of the Municipal Act, Council of the Rural Municipality of Rosedale do now move into camera to discuss legal and personal matters at this time. 10.
10:40?
40. Future issues in accordance with the section 83(1) of the Municipal Act. An issue that is discussed are kept confidential until discussed at a regular meeting of council. To be moved in camera.
Robert said you have.
Robert? Seconder.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor? Carried.
Feel free, there's coffee or bottled water,
And
help
if you do
yourself,
that,
and
information
donuts,
discussed
and if
with
you'd like to
the
sit up, unfortunately, that's about the only wall, yeah, if that works for you, okay.
Or how's that community conduct in the public? Yeah, somebody moved this, sorry.
I'll second.
Robert. Excuse me. Okay. All approved? Carried. Do you want to do this one before or after? Okay, perfect.
You have to move back into the meeting chair?
That was the resolution, yeah.
He always wants paper. We're not saving any trees.
No, next meeting, I promise, I'm going to do, I'll have some
But
more
you guys are
resolutions for them, but I'm going to try and do it all electronically on my part. And then, even the minutes and everything, like,
just
It's a positive outlook.
I just get excited to wake up, it'll just be on TV.
I'm glad that you're paying attention, because otherwise between the rest of us, we don't. No, I appreciate the reminders, that's good, that helps me a lot.
Well, it's probably gonna sit trouble to do the other way.
Exactly,
Eventually.
yeah, exactly, someone will come in and say, you didn't even open the meeting.
Yeah, rules can't secure, you'll still have to come through the front doors, so don't have to.
You got 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Very good.
Was that for the hospital?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
It's, that thing from last night's airing on the station on Monday, if you wanna see it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing.
It's just the maintenance plan portion of the map that you can keep my fence around.
But that was like a really thorough presentation last night.
It was, I was
Yeah.
quite surprised actually, it's nice to see though. It looks like a beautiful building.
I
That's
know,
gonna be
right?
Really nice, yeah, yeah, they did an exceptional job.
Which is not to say I ever wanna stay there, but if I have
You
to.
want the map, I don't know.
Right, I know, yeah, at least it would be
Take a
nice to
vacation
stay in
in
a
it,
brand
you
new
know.
building, yeah. Although, yeah,
I do.
understandably, it's not gonna be brand new forever, but it's very nice. Nico was very fortunate, for sure. It's good. Well, we're all very fortunate.
Yeah,
It's been a long time coming.
oh god, yeah, literally decades,
Yeah.
No, I'm just
but I'm interested to know what they're gonna do with the property, like the old,
Yeah, I am too.
yeah.
It's interesting.
I kinda wonder if the high school is gonna need it for expansion, you know what I mean?
Yeah, very well could, right? It's in close proximity. It's definitely won't go to waste, that's for
They're
sure.
not there on, I'm just gonna say Tuesdays after. They didn't have any fresh.
See if this works from here, I might have to move over to
Sure,
that
yeah,
side, we'll
feel
just
free.
kinda see,
So disappointing.
once this comes up, if I get a good shot of it,
I'm gonna do some washroom too, because otherwise.
well, you can.
Right in the middle of things and
I
I'll.
go out there once, 5 minutes before they were coming out. He says, if you come back in 10 minutes, we'll be cool enough to ice. I will be there.
Absolutely.
Somebody else like me. Yeah, exactly. Your bridge meeting, high school, and
For late.
Projected at an angle a little bit.
You got this on boats. Oh, we got hell of a
That's the. Really, have you met? It's about a minute yet, or you start?
Yeah, and then it goes, yeah. That's as far as the angle you can go out, really. And they're not up the first.
What do you do? That's in 1 minute midnight. Seriously?
We're on Philippines, like on the proper stay.
Doesn't feel receiving up.
No, not really.
That's what we get. That's what we get.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we started for you, gotta get into it. Yeah, we started.
Plus, yeah, I've been there in the last 2 weeks, I've been.
Are you starting up?
No,
Oh,
but
Getting ready.
you never know,
Yeah, we're not there closely yet.
everything's ready to go.
10 more days, I think, are sold for us.
Well, that's like, that's 21st, supposed to.
Yeah.
I think something there.
Sean, forget it.
Yeah, they're just, I mean, you don't know.
Cherries did pretty good, eh?
Maybe do good.
Yeah, 15, 16.
Just- Did you hear me thinking? Sorry about that.
That's what I can smell.
That's that smoke.
Thumbs on fire a little bit.
They burned it down. Yeah, the engine was leaving, but the transmission still.
Average 15, 16. Open her up and pour a little more lube.
Yeah.
There were some older.
Read some of that filter.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's what do you do?
They're gone, they're gone.
What is that there, going on?
Because you can't.
Is this okay for you?
Yep.
Christmas.
Okay. You're good?
Oh, yeah.
For open house.
Yeah. Thinking water or something.
Laser one.
That's why I never before. Just because see some good sized dogs too.
Oh, yeah, I know, we had some nice dogs.
Yeah. Make that decision. Bring that to the
Chad
goals.
said something about him being short of hay or something too, he said.
Oh, is it? Hey.
Hey,
I said, I say.
I got some, I got some, that one, $75, just like you got.
I don't think that exists right now.
No.
$75 bill, hey?
Nowhere.
It's gone the other way now.
Just some the other day.
Lucky you get 60.
Yeah, that's good for us guys buying it, so.
Yeah.
You wanna buy it? I got.
I-
I got it too.
Yeah, I got
You
one.
got a few, eh?
Hey?
You got a few?
I get a few, yeah, you seen the pile.
Anyways,
Seen you there.
thank
I see
you.
Van here.
We'll get at this.
Okay, we can do introductions maybe. I'll start, Joseph with Peer Solutions.
I'm Jonathan with Peer Solutions.
Furniture.
Ron Cossinger.
Jeff Henderson.
Carl says it.
Earl Burton.
Robert Scott.
Dave Toderick.
I'm Kara. And this is Rain.
Well, nice to meet you all in person, and yeah, we last summer we inspected 11 of the bridges and culverts in your municipality, and yeah, we'll present our inspection findings and put together sort of a 5-year maintenance plan. And so I'll go into detail of that. So we're here to present our findings, sort of. Yeah, if you have questions, feel free to shoot questions, and we want to make sure you understand what we're proposing as sort of a maintenance plan. We want something that's actionable for you guys that you can implement and make sure you maintain your infrastructure well. And yeah, I'll just go a bit of an intro on our company. We're office based in Oak Bank, have also a yard in RM of Rosedale as well as Tisdale, Saskatchewan. So mostly serving municipalities and their bridge infrastructure. And yeah, we have sort of a bridge management company of engineers as well as crews doing the work on the ground, doing maintenance work. So we provide engineering, inspections, project management, general contracting. Yeah, a bit over 20 people, so pretty small. So this is an outline. I'll go over sort of what bridge management is, how we sort of categorize the repairs, and then sort of just go over some of the bridge anatomy, sort of some of the naming convention we use, and then go over our findings and over the sort of recommended maintenance, and then sort of next steps in implementing this maintenance plan. So bridge management, it's an optimization of expenditures, and the aim is to provide long-term cost savings and reduce financial shocks. You know, if something more major breaks down, then you have financial shock and you didn't budget for it, so you can spread it over time and plan for it. And it removes emotion out of the decision making as well. When you have the facts, you can make fact-based decisions, and biases it removes as well. These are some of the color coding you'll see in your maintenance plan that we sort of spread out depending on the how critical the repair is. Primary repairs is critical for maintaining the structural integrity of the bridge. Secondary is sort of moderate importance for the structural integrity or more preventative maintenance, and tertiary more minor repair items. So the bridge anatomy, sort of typical sort of timber bridge. This is a 2-span bridge here with the 3 supporting locations. So at the top you got the railing, sometimes you have a wheel guard at the bottom here. And then you have your wearing surface, typically gravel, sometimes asphalt, or sometimes just a concrete deck, and often a timber deck underneath. And then you have your timber stringers or steel beams or girders, sometimes concrete girders that sort of carry the weight across to these pile caps. And then the piles underneath transfer load into the ground. And then you have your pier, sort of the middle supporting structure, and both abutments are sort of your end supporting structures that are also holding back the embankment fill here. And the wing walls are just sort of holding back the embankment fill along the sides. And then you have your back wall and wing wall planks that hold back the fill. Yeah, so these are the sites we inspected There's 11 of them, mostly bridges. There's 2 culverts as well. There's three bridges that were, this map's a little bit blurry here, but this is even here. Franklin down here. 3 bridges that were in the worst condition, the rest were in pretty good condition. Kara had mentioned one of them that was probably the worst condition, had been now replaced with a low-level crossing, so I won't go over that one. There's 2 bridges that were probably the worst condition, that were farmer access for field, or some grain bins at the one location and some bush. So it was a fairly low-use road. Yeah. So this is one of them that's almost right by Riding Mountain there, over McLennan Creek. There's cattle in this area. Looks like it's washed out quite a bit here this spring with some of the shale sort of washing out around this bend here downstream. Yeah, so it's a one span, it's all timber. And then to the west of there's just field access or bush there. And it has restrictions to no heavy trucks posted here at this bridge. Main concern here is the west abutment. The piles are leaning quite a bit, and the cap is wanting to rotate off. The east abutment, the east abutment here, it's a lot more straighter, but the cap is rotating off. You can see off the piles quite a bit. The 40 to 60% of the remaining sort of bearing left, and these sort of timber connections are pulling out. But yeah, the west is leaning quite a bit here, and these connections are also pulling out. Reasons could be that the piles weren't driven very deep, and maybe there's some slope failure and it's moving in. This next slide, you can see the pile caps also sort of bowing, which could mean the piles are heaving up. Here as well, that's a bit of a smile, or mostly this end. So it might be that it's heaving. You can also see the planks are sort of creating a bit of a V shape, so that might mean that likely, yeah, the outside piles are heaving up, so likely not that deep in the ground. And there's definitely been some erosion here. There's, yeah, the embankment fill is coming through here at the east, and at the east wing wall here, northeast wing wall as well. Most of these planks are rotten, and the cleat here connecting the planks to the back, wing wall planks to the back wall plank is the cleat here, this timber piece, mostly rotten as well. The piles were all in good condition besides that they're leaning, but yeah, there's the most rot here is in these planks, and these bottom 2 planks on the east as well were rotten. And then one wing wall pile at the northwest has a bit of rot at the top. Couple posts, this one is leaning over. There's 3 that had some rot at the top. There's one little hole in the deck, and a little bit of scrape marks here, so not very much gravel cover on here. And no hazard markers, I guess, at the corners. So this site, we had given recommendations to reset the caps onto the piles to regain that bearing, and also level out the caps while doing that. And then also add clay with riprap at the abutments just to close off these gaps at the bottom so it doesn't wash out behind the embankment. And then also replacing those rotten wing wall planks there. And then addressing that little hole in the deck and installing hazard signs at the middle. This could be though treated if the repairs aren't really worth it, and we don't really know exactly what's going on with these piles. They might continue to heave, maybe they're cracked underground, and there might be a slope failure. So it's a bit unsure what's going on, why these piles are leaning so much. So it might be, if it's a very low priority road, you might also consider putting in a low level crossing if that doesn't need full year access. And it seems like there was very little water at the time here. 8 inches of water, so low level crossing could be an option instead of putting money into here with the uncertainties of the piles and the movement. So this could be sort of reanalyzed, and these are sort of the typical repairs we would do, but given the uncertainty, you might want to consider not putting the money into this bridge. Alternatively, if you want to keep the bridge, you'd likely probably want to put steel piles in, and then you can drive them deeper. Likely, it's potential that there's a lot of shale here, so there might be also till pretty close, and they couldn't drive the piles very deep, and so that's why they're moving. So some options here, but this was the estimated cost at just over 50,000 of repair costs that we had estimated. Site 2 is a horizontal ellipse culvert. Yeah, it was in good condition on Road 86 West through North Snake Creek. Yeah, there wasn't not much to note. There's a little bit of sort of corrosion along the water line here. And yeah, just a couple of dents from sort of debris flowing in, but yeah, mostly in good condition. There's no culvert markers attached, so that was just one recommendation we had here, to install those culvert markers just to notify vehicles or snow wheels or yeah. Site 3, yeah, I won't get into. This is the one that had quite an extensive rot at the caps, and it partially broke through there. So that's been replaced with that low level crossing. That's that field access there on Road 88 West, Eden Creek. Site 4, this is one of the 3 that was in pretty poor condition, just east of Eden here, crossing Eden Creek. It's mostly the piles that are in bad condition at this bridge, and you can see the stream is sort of meandering over and washing at the, so there's a bend, so typically streams tend to migrate towards the outside bend, so it has migrated and starting to wash at the wall here. So the east abutment, right, this is the west abutment. The west abutment had 2 piles that were rotten. These first two on the west. I should have mentioned the numbering. How we number it is everything from north to south and west to east, and then this would be considered pile 1 as we look from west to east. We number everything left to right. So if you look into the report, that's how we number it. So this is pile 1 on the west, and 2 that were rotten. Had like 1.5 to 11-inch rot, so it was mostly rotten through. Just had that treatment layer on the outside. Still good. There was some. Okay, sorry, I mixed it up. This is the west here. These 2. There was some shavings here on the ground and on the caps. We weren't quite sure where that's coming from. It might be from this pile, likely from an ant infestation on one of the members. But we couldn't hear anything in the cap, so I don't think it was the cap. It could have been from the pile, but it was also on the cap, so I was a bit puzzled where it was coming from. And then, yeah, the east had 4 of the piles actually, 2 to 5 here, had rot. I have noted here the rot measurements, but it was a significant portion of the pile was rotten. And yeah, we drilled holes to check it with a probe. So those are the main things. Some of the wing wall piles also, this northwest one is fully split, and then the one beside here, just to the side of that one, has just a bit of a splinter. And then the southwest, this pile has 2 to 9 inches of rot depth, so quite a bit of rot. Still holding the wall, and this is the pile next to it has quite a bit of rot at the top. And then over to the east, this is the northeast pile, had 2 to 5 and 9 to 11-inch depth rot, so extensive rot, but it's still holding. And then the southeast here, the wall you can see is leaning out a bit, and these are the tops of those piles. So there's a fair bit of sort of splintering and rot at the top, but it didn't extend very far down. So our recommendation for these wing wall piles is just cap it, like a steel tin cap kind of thing, and then put these treatment rods in, which are, you may have seen at hydro poles. They treat them with a boron rod, and then that's a fumigant that stops the rot. So, yeah, that's our recommendation here. Given the number of piles at the abutments that need repair or need addressing, so typically if there's a few piles that need addressing, we typically put a timber or steel, but typically a timber stub in. So we cut it off, put a new section of timber in, put like a fiber reinforced polymer wrap around with an epoxy filled. So that's sort of a timber stub detail. Given the number of piles here, it might be wiser to drive new piles. Might be sort of more economical. Typically, if you go over 4, 5, 6 piles, it might be cheaper to drive new piles instead of doing the stuff on so many. And so they might be like sometimes we drive them through through the deck and then pull them under the cap and tie it to like a dead man anchor in the embankment, because we do drive them at a little bit of an angle and you have to pull them in. In this case, since we're driving so many on both sides, it would be simpler just to pull the span off with a crane, drive them, put it back. Yeah, we did a similar one last summer. It was a similar scenario, and that seemed like the most economical, just because if you want to drive through the deck, it's sometimes hard to line them up in between the stringers at a good spacing.
That bridge you're talking about, that one belongs to White Mud Watershed.
Oh, that's not yours?
No.
Okay.
I did not know that.
Pardon?
I said, I did not know that.
Okay.
There's a few.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there
Well, then
will
I
be,
should tell Cam at White Mud.
Yes, you should. You want to give them that report.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, well, we
That bridge
inspected
isn't
this
all that
one.
old really. It's like
Okay.
about maybe 25 years old. That's not very old for a bridge.
Yeah, so I'm a bit surprised at the extent of rot. So I don't know how the deck looked previously and how much water got through there, but obviously a wet environment.
Right.
Yeah.
Those piles came out of the old railway track,
Okay.
and the problem with them was only one smack of the hammer, and they were as deep as they can be. So Ron, do you remember working on that one?
No, I was just thinking.
We were trying to backfill the east side, and the backhoe would reach over and pull the dirt in, and the top of the bridge would move with it, because they're not very solid.
Mhm.
They might be
Yeah.
decent shape.
Yeah. We have excavated both ends and it does move on
Yeah.
even bigger bridges. They tend to have flex. But you're saying they didn't go very deep, eh?
No, because they weren't long enough, that's what
Oh,
God
okay.
said. That
How long were-
Watershed bought those from
Yeah.
the guys that salvaged the railway line
Okay.
there, and they weren't long enough.
Yeah. So that was just the exposed section of pile they took off of like a timber trestle rail bridge.
Yeah,
Okay, so that couldn't have been more than 20-25 feet.
no, I don't think it was even that long.
Oh wow. I'm
I-
surprised there's no
I-
heaving
I
then.
live right there, that's why.
Okay,
I
yeah,
have no
yeah.
contact there.
Well, then you're in luck.
Dodge the bullet.
Yeah. I can send it to Cam if you're good
Yeah,
with
send
it.
it to Cam.
Please send it to Cam, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, send it to Cam.
Okay.
Mention goalposts.
He actually wanted us to look at a bridge and we were like, well, we were out here today, we could look at it, but he didn't quite have time to give us the details, but yeah, I'll be in touch with him. So
Good.
anyway, that's the condition of the bridge. I won't keep going here. But yeah, I mean, you're in good shape there then. Yeah, this was the biggest cost item, 100,000.
Good job, Robert.
Yeah. So you kept that one.
Yeah, and then now that other bridge you've turned into a low level crossing. If you do it with the other farmer field access, you're looking at a pretty good overall maintenance plan. Like it's not as costly for sort of upkeep. Yeah, I'll pass it on to John to continue here.
Yeah, so Site 5 is a single span concrete bridge, channel bridge over Road 95 West, crossing Stony Creek. One of the main deficiencies we had noted here was just undermining of the south abutment bottom planks. You can see that here in figures 1 and figures 2. Additionally, the old timber piles were pushing on the new concrete girders. And there was some damage to the northwest railing, likely impact damage It's caused the post to turn out and the railing to bend. And then in figure 2, it's showing that there is missing hazard signs, and in figure 3, there was a split at the south abutment pile cap on the east end. And then between the channel for the pile cap and the top plate, there is some pack rust and surface rust forming, but we haven't noted any repairs for that, just kind of a monitor thing.
I don't know what that does.
So for the primary repairs, we are recommending to armor and add riprap to the bottom plank here, just to prevent undermining. And the additional repairs would be to, I believe it was, remove the debris and seal this cap, just
Just the end crack there,
Yeah.
just so water doesn't get in, just seal it with epoxy, yeah.
and then add the missing 4 hazard signs, so it's nothing too
Yeah.
major.
And then just fix that end of the railing, like the post and the end flare.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's not urgent, but something we noted for repairing eventually.
Yeah, so with the repairs, we expect that there's a life expectancy of about 30 or more years. And to reiterate the repairs, it was armoring and adding riprap at the south abutment, cleaning out and the split and epoxy sealing the split on the south pile cap, or sorry, the east abutment pile cap, replacing the torn post and replacing the railing connection box tube connector, and cleaning off and cutting down the old piles.
I should add, when I was finishing the PowerPoint, I realized I had rearranged all the numbers of bridges to go from like north to south in your municipality and west to east kind of thing. And I didn't realize in my report the sort of remaining service life, estimated service life, I forgot to rearrange that. So the numbers in, not in this one, but the report I submitted, they won't make sense, but in here they're correct. So for the final draft, I'll make sure I fix that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we have estimated just a touch over 10,000 over the 5 years just for the maintenance on this structure. Site 6 is a single span concrete bridge located on Road 92 West, crossing Spring Creek. Here we had noted that the north pile cap has 1 to 4 inches of rot and extends about 9 feet from the west end. Additionally, at a bunch of the wing wall piles, we had noted moderate to severe levels of rot with an ant infestation in the northwest wing wall at the top of the pile. For these, we would recommend installing treatment rods and capping all of the wing piles, and in addition, treating the north cap on the west end. So here at the south wing walls, you can see that there is some erosion on the right and left side. For this, we recommend armoring and adding riprap, just to prevent further erosion of the abutment. And the bottom plank on both abutments is just starting some undermining. So for this bridge, we recommended just adding clay and riprap at both abutments and then at both wing walls, just to prevent further erosion. Additionally, there was some vegetation just encroaching on the roadway. It's fairly minor, but it's something that should just be cut down. It's fairly easy to take care of. And here you can see that the post on the east railing has just disconnected. Again, we would recommend just reconnecting that. And
Twisted as well.
oh yeah, and twisted. So I think we had recommended for this one to replace the traffic post and then add new hardware. And again, missing hazard signs. So another thing to just make note of is adding hazard signs to the bridges. With the repairs, we expect a 20 to 25 year life expectancy, and over the 5 years we have estimated the price at around $18,000 for these repairs. but the majority of that was just armoring both the south and north abutments. Site 7 is a single-span timber bridge located on Road 95 West, crossing a tributary creek. So here, on the north abutment, the pile cap has a narrow split at the east end. For this, we hadn't recommended any repair. It was fairly minor, just to monitor this over the next few years, see what happens there. But at the other end of the pile, there was severe rot, about 80% section loss, and it was extending 3 feet from the west. So for this, we had recommended treating the west end of the cap and also capping the end just to prevent moisture from penetrating. And in figure 3 here, there is some impact damage where the posts from the railing connect to the stringers. It's pretty severe. It's caused the stringer to kind of turn inwards. We were recommending to replace this stringer and then add diaphragm rods to the exterior of both stringers. Just if there is any impact damage to the posts, when it transfers that to the exterior stringers, it's not causing as much damage.
Like the neighboring stringer right beside.
Yeah, so the diaphragms would just go between these two stringers on both exterior. And then that allows, just when there is impact damage to the post, it doesn't push in as much and helps transfer that load.
You can see a tag there on the northeast. Typically it's fastened a MTI tag, so the province had likely built it in 1973.
And here there is just some impact damage, likely from clearing out ice in the winter. It's nothing major, it's just something to monitor over time, but not any real structural damage. In figure 2, we have just a split. I believe that's the southwest end of the south abutment pile cap. And in figure 3, this cleat here, or pile clamp, it's crushing at the top here, and this pile has started to pull away from the abutment. And the railing has leaned out. If I go back here, I believe it was this stringer, just from this bending, and it's caused the railing to lean out. For the repairs, this railing, we just recommend realigning it when replacing that exterior stringer. And I believe this was just to monitor over time for now.
I think we were gonna replace it with a steel angle and then you can pull it in again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, for this one, we were going to replace with a steel angle and then pull that pile back underneath the pile cap. So here are the wing walls. At the top left, the northeast wing wall, you can see that there is a split in the wing wall cleat and there is a missing top plank. We were recommending just to repair that top cleat by putting a new one in and adding that top plank. For the pile, it's kind of split off at the top, but
That one.
I believe we were just going to leave this one. It's a fairly low wing wall, so if anything was to occur over time, we could always add riprap or clay. There's nothing major right now.
Yeah, it's maybe 2.5 feet high, those wing walls, so they're not doing too much.
And yeah, same thing with the southeast wing wall. For now, we would just monitor.
It's mostly missing.
Yeah. So with ongoing maintenance, we expect 20 to 25 year life expectancy of the structure. And over the 5 years, we budgeted or kind of estimated a $20,000 repair. And that was for replacing the stringers, adding the diaphragms to both exterior stringers to the inside, realigning the railing, adding hazard markers, and replacing that cleat on that one pile that was pushing out.
And one wing wall pile we did recommend capping and treating it. And I should also add on the life expectancy, it's a fairly conservative number. It's hard to predict exactly how the deterioration will happen. We've seen a number of timber bridges, lasting 100 years or something. So with proper maintenance, they can't outlast that easily, just,
So site 8, this was just an ellipse corrugated culvert. It's on Road 88 North, but there was nothing major noted at this site. Some of these steel sheet piles had just moved over time. Those are kind of the wing walls at either end of the ellipse culvert. And then there was some slight scouring at one end, but we hadn't noted any repair for this. It was very, very major, not much water flowing through here. The one thing we figured could be added was culvert markers, just so fairly minor. Site 9, this was a single span concrete bridge located on 87 West. So you can see at the abutment, the north abutment here, there is some sections of spalling and steel has corroded over time. That's the same, there's like different levels of spalling at both abutments, and we're recommending to clean off the corroded steel and patch with like a high strength grout. So here the southeast abutment, again, there's varying levels of spalling. Same thing for your soffits. This is the west end, and this is another section on the west end, the soffits. It's some varying levels of spalling, but nothing too major. We would recommend just removing spalling concrete and patching. So here is the railing. Again, moderate to severe levels of spalling. With the railing, we weren't too concerned. Figured just monitor over time. One of the major things at this site was actually the excess gravel on top of the deck. There's about 20 inches of gravel throughout, and we would recommend removing about a foot. A foot of gravel adds about 50,000 pounds to the structure, so some minor work there might help it out quite a bit. And then here in figure 3, the northeast wing wall, there's just some erosion here, and we would recommend armoring and adding riprap. Oh, and also adding missing hazard markers. So life expectancy of the structure is about 20 to 25 years, and over the 5 years we have budgeted just a touch under 28,000 for this site.
and it's built in 1928, so it's good shape.
Okay, I'll pass it on to Joseph for some time.
This is the second last one, so bear with us. Site 10 is on Road 95 West, crossing over Stony Creek. It's a timber structure, single span. No, it wasn't a single span, sorry, it's a two span. One of the exterior stringers has a bit of a structural crack sort of throughout the stringer, but between posts 3 and 4 here it had a bit of rot, about 1.5 inches deep rot noted there. So it's starting to rot at that crack. It wouldn't be worth replacing. It looks pretty solid still, even though there's a bit of a structural crack. So we just recommend putting treatment rods into that one just to prevent that rot from progressing and monitoring it for now. The stringer beside it on the next span has some rot starting along that drying shrinkage crack that you often see along the middle of a large timber. So also installing the treatment rods along that timber just so it doesn't progress. At the pier there's 2 piles with a bit of rot starting. This one has a bit of a split here too, very narrow, but a bit of rot starting. And this one has some damage at the bottom. We're not sure what from, but there's some rot starting there, so we recommended putting those treatment rods in just so it doesn't sort of progress further. It does seem to be dry on sort of in the summer, but likely in spring it is underwater. And then that same pier, there's some of the bracing here. This one's split and this one's totally off on the opposite side here. So just replacing those, just it keeps the piles all connected and they can carry load better. The south abutment, you can see the planks sort of stop a couple feet up, so there's some undermining starting and it's exposed, so we just recommend adding some clay and rock just to armor that so it doesn't wash out in a high flood event. Two ends of the railings had been hit, here and here, sort of leaning out. The posts seem okay and the stringers seem okay. Maybe that one crack we saw in the stringer was caused by that. But essentially just replacing these two sections of the double beam railing and the end flare here on those would be sufficient, and then there's one other end flare that's sort of bent that we recommend replacing. And then there's a couple of spacer blocks that are twisted, so just straightening them out and securing them, and then adding the hazard markers was all that we noted here. So 14,500 here, which is mainly just doing those treatments and armoring the one abutment there, and adding that clay just to regrade that abutment, and some of those railing section replacements. Yeah, life expectancy of 15 to 20 years, but yeah, I would think it could outlast that. Proper maintenance. Site 11 is a single span, similar to the one that Jonathan talked about. The problem with these is it's really close to an intersection, so I'm guessing semis turn and do catch the railing, and that's why the stringer got damaged there. So here, same idea, stringer is split on both sides actually, so I guess semis turning, so it cracked it right through on both sides. And so we recommend replacing those exterior girders. Here it isn't leaning out as much because it has some tie back to the next stringer, but it will still split it at sort of the half of each stringer. So you can see here where that turn was, and sort of pushed out the whole railing as well. So we just recommend replacing those stringers and tying it back to the neighboring stringer. Not sure what the best solution is. It might happen again with semis turning there, so I'm not sure what the best solution is to address that.
Take the railing off, that's the best.
Well, you might need to, yeah. It isn't a huge draw, so you might be okay to take that risk. I don't know. Or you put a wheel guard up, which is a foot high, like a timber wheel guard. So if the vehicle does come close, at least they sort of bounce off. Not as safe, but it isn't a very isn't a very large drop here. I think it was like 4 or 5 feet maybe here under here. So and the railing is pretty low, but obviously stuff clips it still. So not sure what the best solution is. It's more so the road geometry issue. One pile has a bit of a split here, but nothing major, and the cap had a bit of a sort of splinter towards the bottom here, and a slight split at the end, but something just to monitor. And just adding hazard markers, maybe that'll help a little bit. Just to be able to see the extent of the railing and that there's a bridge. So 27,000 mainly is replacing those stringers and adding those hazard signs. That's what our estimate was. So that brings us to the end of the 11 sites. I guess there's one that doesn't belong to you, so that can be crossed out.
If you see any more, Robert.
Speak up, Robert.
Yeah, and it happens. It's oftentimes you're sort of sorting through who belongs to what bridge belongs to whom. Site 3 is the one that hopefully it's legible. It's a little bit blurry, but it's the one that was replaced with a low-level crossing. So that 61,000 repairs we had recommended is not there anymore, and then the 100,000 here doesn't belong to you, so that's a 160,000. So almost half of this budget is reduced, so that's great. So these are sort of the sites with a sort of maintenance cost. So there's a little bit at each site. Otherwise, so the main ones is site 1 that you might want to consider a low-level crossing. It's 46,000 there. It's now your most costly one. So overall 329, but now as you can, there's 100,000 eliminated, 160,000. So, but that we sort of try to split it up into somewhat even amount. We try to prioritize the primary repairs early, but sometimes, based on logistics of some repairs, it makes sense to add some other ones with it, for efficiency's sake. Yeah, so that's sort of the site. Year 2 was a bit high because of that one site that required all the work in one shot. But now this likely would, I've rejigged that a little bit, and yeah, I don't know if, like, it will likely be 40 to 50,000 to 60,000 a year sort of annual maintenance budget then. Yeah, we recommend, I guess, council adding sort of a budget contingency of 10% on top, just to have a bit of buffer there. Yeah, so that's our sort of draft report that we submitted and now presented, our findings and our recommendations. So we want to make sure you have a plan in place that works for you guys. So obviously now with some of these changes, we'll revise it a little bit. But if there's any other recommendations you want to see on the timing or types of repairs, we definitely want to revise it to have, so you have a plan in place that you can actually implement. And then, yeah, some of the repairs you can likely do in-house. Some you might need more specialized services. Yeah, either you could sort of traditionally tender it out. We could, if you want to continue working with Peer Solutions, we can provide site supervision and just yeah, make sure the repairs are completed properly. What we have done with a number of RMs for maintenance like this is a construction management format. It can be done like a lump sum item, or construction management is where essentially there's a set % construction management fee charged, and then just basically charge material, labor, based on what's actually used. Allows us to take out the risk that we have to price in for some of these uncertainties, and allows a lot more collaboration. Some RMs want to provide their own gravel or their own excavator, their own labor even, and that's worked really well with some other municipalities to work that way. Yeah, so it's a sort of bit of a blend between a general contractor and a consultant. And, yeah. So for maintenance, it often makes sense to do it this way. There's obviously, I've mentioned in the report, sort of strategic importance. We don't want to just base it on the repairs. You know, some bridges are more important to you guys than others. So, but this is dependent more so on your input from you guys. What bridges are more important? Maybe you want to prioritize them. You know, it's a critical route. We want to make sure this one's in top shape, or this one isn't that important, like you have done with one. We'll just put in a low level crossing. It's not that's good to keep a bridge there, right? So, just something to consider as well, and maybe provide feedback on the timing of some of these repairs. Yeah, any other questions? That brings us to an end to our presentation. And, yeah, hopefully that clarifies things a little better.
I guess with some of this repair that we can do possibly ourselves. Most of these bridges I see need riprap. What type of riprap do you recommend? What size of riprap?
Typically do a standard, like a class 350, so that would be like 14, 16-inch rock. You want a bit of gradation though, from like 6 to 18-inch, just so it interlocks well.
Right.
Yeah, typically like if you have, you know, field stone, it's a little more rounded. It's often cheaper. The angular stuff interlocks better, but we've seen, you know, rounded stone work well if it was, you know, large enough and interlocks well. Yeah.
Because we've been putting some in the past, some small stuff, and it just it's gone.
So yeah, like, I mean, if you really want to know, you can do a hydraulic analysis, but that costs you, you know, 15 grand to determine all the flows and stuff. So you'd rather just upsize it a bit, and typically most scenarios are like a class 350, like a 14-inch median size works. Like, I'm just sort of talking about the province typically uses, like sometimes they use like class 450, so that's 450 millimeter rock. So that would be like a 16-inch, I think, and then there's up to like 600, but that's very rare.
That's rare.
20-inch, that'd be rare. So and then oftentimes, stuff like this, local contractor can do as well. Like sometimes access is a little tricky though under the bridge. You might have to stand behind skid steer or something like that to get under there, or
Some of them are fairly low too, eh?
Yeah.
Like to put in there, and maybe tricky,
Yeah, sometimes we actually, what we do is do it in winter and place it like we recommend putting a geotextile fabric under, non-woven fabric underneath, because then the water can't wash away the fines underneath the rock. And sometimes we do it in winter, put the geotextile on, put the rock on, and then it'll sort of settle in. You might not get your perfect sort of shape, but it's easier to place it then. Yeah.
Yeah, we did that actually when, right on top of the ice in,
Yeah.
on,
Okay.
the San River in Brandon,
Okay. Yeah.
cut ice out,
Okay.
and we used
Cut it
all
out,
the piers,
yeah.
we put riprap.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I said, there's no sense going in there.
No, I was fun.
We went to the back, there was nobody in the back.
Yeah, we were served.
Okay, guys, got a couple of resolutions we need to get through here before we get our next speaker, so. The council of the municipality of Rosedale approves the following request to pay out 3.5 days of remaining 2022 vacation leave and to pay $50 per month for cell phone use to Assistant CEO Colleen McLaughlin, and to pay out 12 days of remaining 2022 leave to CAO Kara Sylvester. Do I have a mover? Ernie? Seconder? Robert? All in favor? Carried. One more here. That we, the council, agree to hire Jim Cockburn and Trevor Tinchuk as municipal emergency coordinators for the RM of Rosedale. Do I have a mover? Sorry, Earl. Seconder? Dave Tedrick. All in favor? Carried. Perfect. Alrighty.
Are you ready to go?
I guess so,
Bill?
yeah, sure.
Come on in, Doug.
All right. Keep your toes tucked in here.
How much detail do we want to go into in the past?
Just an overview, I think,
Just an
should be
overview?
sufficient, and then if council has questions, I've downloaded both of the documents, the feasibility study and the other item of this testing.
Yeah.
And then council can review that at their leisure, but otherwise, if you want to just give them a broad overview
Okay.
of what is happening and any suggestions or recommendations you have, that would be great.
Okay. Just gonna bring up the report, so if I
Sure,
hard
take your
to
time.
reference it, I did not bring a copy of the feasibility study with me.
That's okay. Everyone should have a copy. I checked your email address. Can you check your junk mail?
I did, I can
And
check it
wasn't-
again,
Yeah.
but I check it,
Because I was gonna resend it, but it's the same email address as what you already have. So I sent it to the right email. I just don't
It's
know why
there
you didn't
somewhere.
get it.
because no, when I checked my junk mail the first time thinking it would go there for whatever reason, but it's the same, you're the same address, see, I get lots of stuff from you, so
Right.
it doesn't put you in junk anymore.
Okay, so, no, but it'll come, it's coming, the email actually comes from this AllNet provider. It's not from me,
Oh.
so that's why I think it went to your junk.
It's not in there till, unless it's in there today.
Okay, I'm gonna send it to you right now,
Okay,
and we'll try it, because your phone's here, right?
no, well, no, my
Or
laptop, or my iPad's in my bag, so.
Okay,
I didn't
yep,
bring it out because
nope.
what's the point?
Well then, I will send it to you right now, and you should get it right now. Okay, So successfully sent again.
I'm sending something to you too. So
Okay.
in fairness, Larry sent me a text. Larry Quincy.
Oh, good, okay.
I'm trying to forward it to you, see how that works out.
Hopefully it'll connect somewhere, right?
This guy will be a,
I can't open this file,
Which one?
the feasibility report, the landfill feasibility report. I can
Okay.
open up the test pit program,
Okay. And it's just not allowing you to open it?
just gives me an error message that I can't open the file.
Okay. That's strange, because it was attached at the same time as the other one. Is anybody else having a problem with the feasibility study? I can open it on mine.
Well, I don't know.
That's what I'm still looking for. You're not getting that part?
Oh, it's in your
Yeah, okay.
documents?
It's the
Yeah, go to
ECS
the
landfill
plus sign in the top
feasibility report.
right corner.
Yeah, I can't open
And
it.
then documents. And then double click on January 13th, yeah. And then feasibility study are the last two words there.
Oh, right here.
Oh.
Yeah. I will open it up.
Apparently if you hit the button 17 times, it works.
Oh, it worked!
16 doesn't.
17th is the number.
Okay, there might be a glitch, because I
Yeah.
just removed it and then I reapplied it, so.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that's gonna do now, sorry.
Would everyone like me to paraphrase what the landfill feasibility said, and then we can just take it from there?
Sure.
I can save you probably falling asleep by reading it. It's the most important pieces of it.
We appreciate that.
Okay, so we did a landfill feasibility study, which basically was like a high overview of the conditions of each of the existing waste management facilities within the RM. So that included Kelwood, Eden, and Elk Branch. Elk Branch was pretty much written off right from the get-go because of what the ministry's historical documentation said about it, and that it had to be closed and be converted to a waste transfer station. So that was pretty much the recommendation for that one, that it stays as it is. The Eden waste disposal ground, it doesn't have any room left, and it never was in compliance. And the reason for that being is that when it was the first, like that property was first developed as a landfill, they didn't have existing design like parameters and setbacks, and because you got to remember it was probably built in the 50s or 60s, in which case none of the current legislation and regulations would have applied back then. And then we have the Kelwood waste disposal ground, and of the three, it appeared that it had the most potential of utilizing existing dirt on the property for the future construction as per the latest Ministry of Environment requirements. Specifically being the soil meets a plasticity / test that makes it so it's impermeable for groundwater to move through it. Okay? So the last time that we spoke to council was looking at potentially acquiring additional lands to the Eden waste disposal ground, which upon further review really doesn't make any sense due to the fact that there's a creek that is within the 100 or 1,000 meter setback that's currently required, so there isn't a whole lot that we can do currently with the Eden landfill, other than close it, turn it into a transfer station, or close it. Unless additional land somehow gets purchased or whatever, and it expands that way. Calwood was determined that it had about 7 years of potential capacity left. Taking into consideration all the current setbacks and buffer zones and all that kind of stuff. So the municipality retained Environmental Consulting Solutions to go in and survey the property, so that if any additional future work is required on that you have the survey data to produce the engineered drawings that are required as part of that submission package. In addition to that, we tested the existing on-site soils within the proposed footprint of the new cell to determine if that material could be used in the future construction. I saw it just like you did, and we both said it's gonna pass. Unfortunately, it didn't pass. It has way too much silt in it. And even at the highest Proctor, 98% Proctor, it's still filled.
Shit.
They must have changed the rules.
No, they didn't change the rules.
Holy.
And the lab that the samples got sent to is the lab that primarily does most of these samples in Manitoba. So they know what they're doing.
That's a shocker.
Yeah. And it barely failed. I'll just give you the number.
Does barely feel kind of like a pass?
So it's one of those things that it failed. Okay, so the numbers came back at 6.1 times 10 to the negative 7 centimeters per second. That's higher than 1. Right, because it's 6. It has to be 1.0 times negative the 7 and under that, meaning like 0.099 to 0 and then into the negative 8. It has too much silt in it. So the alternative is we find another clay source and import that and then use that in the construction of that waste disposal.
We'll have to buy clay for each one we put in each cell.
But once again, you only have 7 years at that waste disposal round. And then you'll be either looking to do something else or expand that waste disposal ground or whatever comes in the next 7 years after that.
What would be the odds of getting a permit to go to a brand new site?
Well, that was the other thing that I was thinking about in the hallway before I came in there. It was, okay, well, what's another option? Well, most of the municipalities on the east side of Riding Mountain are all in the same predicament as you guys are.
So not the only guy stuck with that
You're
job.
not the only guys, you're not the only ones with this happening, okay? And being like the way that Eden is and how it's like a sliver and how it's out of compliance, it's not the first time I'm seeing it. Okay? They're all like that because of when they were created and what the regulations are now. So what I was thinking about is kind of maybe thinking about doing an integrated waste management facility, sort of like what they did at Minto O'Donnell, or however you pronounce it. That's a potential option. Or the municipality builds the landfill, right? And, because currently the city of Naperville goes to Evergreen, do they not?
Yeah.
You guys build a landfill here and they bring their garbage to you. And you get them to pay for it. Right? You charge them to put their waste in there and they end up paying for it, but you guys built it.
And we'll cut that out of the.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Edit that a little bit.
No editing done here?
I mean, there's many solutions, not
Yeah.
any of them are easy,
No.
okay?
But we have a bit of time.
Alright, the Eden landfill is basically exhausted though. So we have to come up with at least a game
Half a
plan.
plan,
Not
yeah.
necessarily action wise, but plan of action
Yeah.
is required.
So how long does it take to get a license for a regional waste management facility? 7 years?
I'd say if you got it within a year, you'd be really good.
Okay.
And the reason for that is like, say for instance, the municipality goes, we just bought a 80-acre site and we want to put like a integrated waste management facility on it. Like, how long will it take you? There's a lot of upfront study work that needs to be done. Unlike some of the other landfills, because this is a new one, it would have to go in like right away and start doing everything. Like, there's like a huge preliminary investigation that you have to do to see whether or not that property can be used as a landfill. And then there's the zoning of it, and it just, so it can be a fairly fast process. It just depends on, what it is, I guess is what I'm saying. So a year and a half.
After you identify a site.
Yeah.
that would-
It might take you a year and a half to identify the site. Because the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have native clay on site
Right.
to help build the cells. Otherwise, you're into importing clay or you're buying liners, which can be very expensive. Now, that all being said, if you can find a clay source around, then the Kelwood landfill still works. The Kelwood landfill still works, it's just you don't have clay to use on site.
Right.
Right.
Okay, and the clay is a big part of it, but it's not the biggest part of it. You still have to construct the framework around it, and then you line it with the clay. So it's not like you build the entire thing with clay. You already have the existing dirt that you can build the frame and then just line it with clay.
It just would have saved us a lot of cost to not have to.
And
find an outside
aggravation,
source.
and finding the source, and
Yeah.
going to another place to test it, to make sure, blah, blah, you know what I mean? And then, and then the next time, is that clay source still available? Is there not, it's just always easier if it's on site, right?
Would there be a chance that Elk Ranch site could be looked at as a site for the whole municipality, like a new application?
There is a potential that if you wish to go like a full waste transfer station, that you could use the Elk Ranch for that, and then set up Eden and Kelwood as transfer station and take it all to there, or just turn them all into transfer stations and have it all shipped to, say, Evergreen. Because it would be your closest place to be able to receive.
Because I'm sure that,
Evergreen doesn't want us to do it.
No, we've already
already asked them for
contacted
it.
them and they won't take us on, they don't have the space for us.
we didn't jump on board right off the bat, so
Oh,
because they wanted a huge amount of money.
yeah.
The transfer station's a huge cost, right? At the end of the day, we're still trucking garbage.
That's right.
It is. I kind of use like a car analogy. So when you buy a car outright, you own the car, and you don't have any monthly payments on it until something happens. Then you have to come up with the money to fix it, right? Whereas if you lease a vehicle, you know for 3 to 5 years that every month you have to pay this amount of money, so you budget for it. It's just one of those things, like, what do you choose? What makes sense? I don't know what an operational cost would be to operate one of your landfills, or all three, I have no idea. But it would be something to consider, potentially. Because we already have all the numbers of how much waste you guys generate in the municipality in a month or a day or whatever. And so you take those numbers and you shop them out to the waste management companies and see what they would come up with. It's one way of doing it.
So with the clay samples, you can take a sample from anywhere, have the university test those, and the lab test those clays against what that number you rattled up?
Yeah, so if you know anybody that's looking for a slough, or like a swimming hole, or like a pond to water cattle or whatever, there's the deal. I know the oil field does it all the time. So you just basically say to somebody, like, do you know if you have good clay? And if they do have good clay, do you have the analytical that supports that? And if they have that, that's even better, because that means that we don't even have to go and test it. And then when all of a sudden magically a big machine shows up and they have a great big swimming pool and you guys have all the clay you could ever need.
Yes, Spring Hill's got all that clay there, but I don't know, we tested it, I was thinking that too, they got lots of clay.
Where did they get it from?
Out of the hole. Yeah, they made 2 big holes, 2 big water reservoirs.
So they may even have analytical for it. And if they do, that would be a huge help,
Maybe one of those things lasts them about.
right? But that's 2 months off of the, potentially more. And the reason that our report took so long is because there's only so many labs within the provinces that do those tests. So if there's only 20 spots available and you're 40th, well, you gotta wait. And sometimes it takes months and months and months before they're able to run them, so, especially in the summer. So that potentially saves a lot of time right there.
Then we could ask the colony what they're doing with all
Place to
that.
start.
clay.
Yeah, it's a start.
It's a place to start.
So really, the only sort of derailment in the process that we started before is that the clay on site isn't suitable for the liner. That's it.
Can still make the base part.
You can do the design. Does it,
Yeah, right on the wall. It's okay.
can it? A red marker?
Sorry, we don't have a whiteboard or anything in
Okay,
here.
so if you think of like the landfill, it gets built like this. Okay, and you push all the dirt in. Well, you only need a meter thick along the surface. That's it. The rest of it is
It's in place of the liner, right?
it's the
Instead of
structure
liner,
of
or the structure of the
So
liner.
what's an average amount that you would use, like yardage, ballpark? You know, on an average cell that you build or whatever.
Give me 1 second.
Then we're kind of know what we're looking at each time we build a cell, if we're looking at like 10 trucks of clay, or if we're looking at 5 trucks of clay. It'd be nice to know, but it's more than one. Guaranteed more than one. Really is.
Okay, well, these are really, I'm just kind of guessing with best kind of stuff. So like one that we built was 114 meters by, I think, 51. But that was just the base. It didn't include the walls. And that's 5,814 square meters times 1 times 2. So that's like 10,000 tons. Now, it can't be that much.
What's that
Okay,
yard?
1 second.
What's that
1 second.
yardage, Ronnie?
Yeah.
So Ron's got the calculator for it.
Well, if you're going a meter thick, you're already 1 yard thick, right?
Yeah.
So we just go 114 by 51.
This square footage, yeah.
Yeah. So you get 6,000 yards.
Yeah,
Ballpark.
114 meters, you said?
yeah.
6,000.
Ballpark.
Yeah.
Is that ballpark, if I'm thinking?
Divided by 25, you'll find out how many
That's a lot of truckloads.
Yeah.
But you gotta remember, your cell may not be that big, okay? I'm just pulling that number out of,
Right.
I don't know what our average cells are, like. Well, I don't, we haven't talked about that, the size of the cell we need.
actually, it's in the landfill feasibility report.
Okay.
Right, I was just looking through that.
And there's something else, that if we were to go this way, there's also another potential way of designing it within the specifications that the ministry outlines, but not entirely lining it. I found a caveat in the standards the other day that could potentially offer some cost relief.
Okay.
But is that a trading short-term cash for long-term environmental issues? Because it seems to me if you're gonna do something huge, you may as well do it right.
Okay, so remember I told you about how it's designed like this, right? The clay is only put in there as a mechanism to deter groundwater from polluting the groundwater table. In the standards, it says that you can design it so the clay doesn't have to go all the way up to the top. You only go up, I think it's like a meter. So if you're 5 meters deep, or 5 meters in total depth of the cell, you only go up a meter, and then the rest doesn't have to be clay, because it's never gonna contain water.
So what do you do with all the water that comes in from rain and these things?
Okay, so it goes,
all in water.
so now, if, like, we took a cross section, now we're gonna look at it from
Yeah.
above, okay? So you have the box like this. Depending on which way the topography goes, you slant it slightly, like the bottom of the cell. So when all the water comes into the bathtub, it all drains to one side, and then you have like a weeping tile. It goes into the weeping tile, and then the weeping tile goes to a direction, and then it goes out and into a leachate evaporation pond.
And that's clay lines
Oh,
also.
that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
What about high temperature burn?
That stuff, you'd probably be faster along the process if you went and bought a property and designed an integrated waste management facility before that would ever get off the ground. It's great in theory. The problem with it is once you get from the theory to practical implementation, there's no money. That's why they come to you and ask for the $300,000 to $500,000 to invest in it so that they can build it. They don't have it. It's not like Walmart where they just go over and they say, okay, I'll take one of those and pull it off the shelf. No, they gotta build it. And in order to build it, you have to have massive amounts of capital because you gotta pay everybody while they build it. Right? And then it's not until after it's been built and then proven and proven and proven and proven that you actually get your money back. So it's like, most investors would look at it as one of the worst investments you could ever invest in because of the time that you have to wait before you get your investment back. Anytime any investors go in, they want immediate returns on their investment, right? Well, you're not gonna wait 10 years to get your return investment on $10 million. Unless you were really passionate about it, and you had lots of money. Anyone got any of that kind of money to be passionate about? Okay.
Not yet.
Oh, yeah.
So where would we like to go from here, Cara?
You know what, I'm gonna have to wait until I get an answer from council first, and then I'll be sure to let you know. Sounds like they have a few decisions and some ideas to hash out, and
Would a summary be helpful?
yeah, I don't see why not. Sure, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that would definitely help.
So what I can do is I'll put a summary email together
Okay,
that just basically outlines what the landfill feasibility said, what this said, and where you're currently at, and potential options. From the easiest, potentially the easiest solution to the most bizarre, out-of-the-box thinking.
Bring it on.
Adventure that you can
they'll
go on.
entertain any idea, I'm sure.
Okay?
That sounds good.
But really, consideration may be warranted for an integrated waste management facility.
I just have to ask you a specific question.
Sure.
Property lines to airport, 15-kilometer buffer.
Yeah.
Airport isn't a certified airport or any landing strip.
Okay, this one's a really sticky one. The reason it's 15 kilometers is because they're afraid that the elevation of the landfill cell is gonna interfere with, air traffic.
That's the reason.
That's the reason.
Oh, okay.
So, for instance, obviously it's never gonna happen out here, but in Winnipeg, it's quite possible that if somebody got into the wrong flight path, they could hit the Winnipeg landfill, because it is fairly substantial elevation different, right? So when it comes to that one, it is probably the easiest one to get an alteration on. So say for instance, the municipality found the perfect spot and it's 5 kilometers from the airport, it's quite possible that the ministry would waive that one.
And the reason I'm asking is because Western Canadian Aerial's building that airstrip just outside of Franklin.
Right.
And 15 kilometers gets you a long way into Rosedale.
Yeah. So those are some things to consider, but that one, it's, of all of them to be able to waive, that's probably the easiest one to get around.
Get around, okay.
Yeah, now, if it was an international airport and you guys were designing your landfill cell to be 120 meters in the ground, or above ground, yeah, it might be entertaining.
15 kilometers from the airport, people always know.
I just took a 50 by 100
Yep.
meters at 3-foot depth, I didn't, of course, with no slopes. You're looking at basically 6,000 cubic yards.
It's about right, because I got 5,800 cubic meters, which is almost 3 feet in a meter, right?
Not counting slopes.
It's flat,
Just a flat, meter thick. Well, I figure 3 feet, but
Yeah, same thing.
50 by 100 meters. Yeah. It's,
So, and then cubic meter is,
6,000 yards.
3?
do you guys like working in cubics, or do you, or weight?
Yards.
Like yards?
Well, there's more, yeah.
It's
Cubic meters
what
is
they're doing with it.
the new wave of the future. Yeah.
I'd see, I generally go by weight,
by weight.
Oh.
No, it's,
because trucking's all weight, right? So,
Should be.
so usually when you have the cubic yards or cubic meters, the density, you times it by 2 and it'll give you the weight.
15 feet they went down.
I think it's either times it by 2 or divided by 2. That's what I need to.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Anything else? I see the chicken chef is taking hold of everybody.
We'll schedule you in for morning meeting next time.
Lunchtime meeting.
What's the real difference between, what is it, a cell and a landfill become an integrated waste management facility?
Okay, so an integrated waste management facility services more than one municipality.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So if you went to the north end of this and served, the people that are in the same boat as we are, somebody up north of us is in the same stuck situation and is looking for someone else to build
Dump
something,
their
so
garbage.
they will come.
They may be interested in talking about it.
Have you talked to, like, that
Yeah,
has
I
happened?
have some information for council on that
Oh,
too.
okay.
Yeah, definitely. That was something that was brought to the table by a number of surrounding municipalities just earlier in 2022, and I attended some meetings and have some feedback. So unfortunately, the new council members weren't here for that because it was before the election, but I can definitely bring you up to speed on that right away. Yeah.
So like that's another, and I wouldn't have thought about that until like this happened, but at the same time, like I said, most of the ones that are going up the east side of the park, they're all in the same boat. And they basically utilize the same techniques as you guys have done. So, right, and they have the same sites, meaning that they're not on 40 and 80 acres, they're on 5.
Yeah.
You're out of compliance right off the bat.
Yeah.
Right? They're close to creeks, they're close to roads, they're whatever, and it's just because back then that was the best place to put them, because it was right beside land that was of no use, i.e. by the swamp, or in the swamp, or whatever. So that's another entire possibility, and like I said, it's not that Calwood is completely written off. It can still be, the plan can still be done there, it's just where do we get the clay?
Where do you get the clay from?
Yeah.
Well, it'll be worth a shot, talk to Spring now.
Yeah,
Get a sample of the clay.
yeah, see if they're
Sound
interested in maybe selling some.
It might be, something
Something we
we
can
can
do.
call them about.
Okay, and then, we obtained the survey data for Calwood. We never, produced a drawing, like an engineered plan. And the reason for it was I didn't think that it was worth the money at this point, because who knows what happens. So for instance, like all of a sudden you guys decided that, you didn't wanna proceed with Calwood, well, you didn't pay for a drawing to be produced yet.
Right.
The information is, like, I have the raw data. Cara, I apologize, I haven't sent it to you because it's like 23 gig. Like, the files
That's
are
okay.
absolutely massive, okay?
No, that's not.
And it's always good to have it, it's always good to save it, because it never really goes outdated. Okay? So one of the things to consider is if we do go ahead with Calwood, then that would be one of the first things to do, is to start that base plan.
Yep.
Okay, and then the other thing that we would need to do is, while I was out there, we did find the 3 monitoring wells that are there. And they were, I asked the surveyor to pick them up, like to pick up the surveys, so obtaining groundwater, levels would be another, big piece of information for us to determine where the water table is, because there's certain, caveats to how deep you can build your cell. Because I think the first one that we did, prior to us filling it in, there was water in it. And if you remember, we only went down to 12 feet, right? So at 3 meters, the water table is present, somewhere around there. And if you're gonna build a cell, you can't be within a meter of the water table. Because really that contradicts everything. You're trying to put stuff away from the water table, the last thing you wanna do is put it right in it.
Right.
Can I ask, did you guys determine how much time is left at currently at the Calwood cell? Was that ever?
The current cell?
Yeah.
It's infinite.
The current cell?
Well, it did. You sure you want to? Okay, when was the last time you heard from the ministry about it?
Right before we contacted you, that's one of the reasons why we
Okay, but
contacted
you haven't
you.
heard from them since?
No, but I have been in touch with her because she's been checking in to see if we're doing what we said we were doing.
Yeah, you're working on it,
Yeah,
right?
okay,
It's a
okay,
slow process.
that's right, exactly, that's all I needed to know, thank
To
you.
do it right takes time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things, don't say anything until something's said, not by you though.
No, I know what you're saying, and it's one of those things where we want to get a plan of action, and that's what
Exactly.
I asked council
Right?
for.
And
in
when we
connecting
started
with you.
this, there was no information, if you remember correctly.
Right,
None.
yes.
There was no site plans, we didn't know where the setbacks were, or how much land, or, you know, how it was constructed. We had nothing. We started basically from nothing. And so now we're at a point where we're starting to get the detailed information of each one and whether or not any of them are feasible, and if which ones are feasible, what is the most feasible way to go?
Right.
And or is it even worth continuing to invest in them,
Right.
Right.
right? Because the last thing you want to do is open up a money hole.
Right.
Right? Unless you're able to, it's your money hole to get the money out of, right? So, and that could be your integrated waste management.
Back to the Elk Ranch thing,
Speaking
why
of-
can we not build something there?
It's an old gravel pit. It's really what it boils down to. It's on a higher elevation, sort of like mound that's full of gravel. And the first thing it says right in the standards for landfills in Manitoba, that you're not allowed to build a landfill cell anywhere near a gravel pit. That's one of the other things about the Eden site too, was like,
It's just a perfect spot, there, but can't.
it's pretty, well, the only thing about it is, like, the land is huge. It's all forested, which, you know, you could whack it down, but it's very undulating. Like, when you drive up the lane, if you're going up and then it's kind of flat and then it's like sloped all the way around it. So you don't really have the full size of it, but that being said, you know, if the municipality decided to go to a transfer station, that would likely be your best one. Because it's got the most room. You just have to expand it out.
Yeah,
But
it
that's
is-
not
it
something
is-
that council ever really wanted to do since we talked, so.
Is there no clay there?
Lots of clay there.
Lots.
Elk Ranch?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of clay up there. I think there was like the other Elk Ranch pit. It was just a small layer of gravel.
There is layers of ground
And then once you went through that, you went back into clay and sand, didn't you?
clay, sand, and something, I
Oh,
should say.
maybe, oh, water.
Well, water,
I forgot about that.
water table.
Magic word.
So,
But like even still, if Elk Ranch had clay, you could always take it out of there.
Mine it out of there. You
Right.
have our own.
Mine the clay from there. When we pass the test, they don't know.
Yeah.
We send a sample, anyways, that's easy to do.
Just clay further west from that, I don't know. If you want.
And like the thing is, if you guys wanted to do it, you already have a resident expert that's sitting in the room, because he watched me do it, so he can do it. You won't have to pay me,
Where?
right there.
Well, digging a hole is easy. It's putting all the dirt in the bag.
Well, yeah, but yeah, the other guy was there, if you remember, he was the one that had the shovel in the bag that was doing it, right?
Right, yeah. That's, digging a death hole is easy.
That's right. Give you the white hat next time.
Okay, thanks, I appreciate that.
Well, that's something we got to think about.
It's not an easy one, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, thank you for making the trip out.
You're welcome.
We enjoy
Thank you
seeing you,
for,
and
the invitation and being able to come in, and
it's nice to make sense of it all. You know, if you can put it in,
it's not easy because, you know, you wish for certain things to happen and just a tiny little thing that doesn't go, and then
Yeah.
kind of right back to the drawing board, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
We've had them fail before, and we're able to get it to work, because when they did the sample, they ran it at what's called 95% Proctor, which means when the compactor goes over it, it packs it to 95% of its ability to have nothing but it in that space.
Okay.
Okay? When it fails, you can try it again at 98% Proctor. But when you're doing construction, that's really not what you want to do, because in order to get that, you may have to add water.
Oh,
Where do you get the water from?
right.
How much water do you have to put on it before you pack it? And then also like your days,
Yeah.
you know, trying to figure out how to get the moisture content so that you can get the 98% Proctor. So in some cases, you could actually spend more money trying to build it that way than it would have been to say maybe go to a liner or whatever.
Right.
Okay, unfortunately, they ran that sample at 98% Proctor and it still failed.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that we could do. And going outside of that, well, every time we put a test pit down, we saw the exact same dirt. So it'd be the same across the property, because it's, what is it, 5 acres, I think? Something like that. It's not. So what I'll do is I'll put that summary together.
Okay.
And then that'll be the basis of like what I've presented to you as potential choices of
Right.
what to do. And then once you guys come up with what you wanna do, then we can break out the tree of effort that has to go into it. How much money is assigned each of the leads?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds good.
Okay?
All right.
All right, thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Or if you guys have any questions, you know where to find me, and just let me know, and I'll be out as best I can.
Okay,
Perfect. Okay.
Right on.
thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey.
Could the next one presenter come in and say that they owe us money?
Right?
Would not be nice.
Expensive meeting.
So I actually just received an email from the gentleman that's supposed to be coming out from the union, and unfortunately the roads were bad when he was headed out. He's turned back already, so he won't be coming out today. So I do apologize. He said that he could reschedule for next monthly meeting if you like, or if you guys want to schedule for a special meeting in between, you're welcome to. It's up to you guys.
Where's it coming from?
Winnipeg. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's from
Roads were
the
bad.
union. He said it was wind blowing and the roads were
Back
icy.
through it now.
Well, yeah, I guess. Actually, no, Doug's from Brandon.
Oh, it's right,
Yeah,
okay.
so he'll be going
So,
down.
The potential being I'll be sticking to the highway, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah, with the sun and everything else maybe. So, yeah, not today. If you like, we can still review the union agreement that is currently, well, was in place until December 31st. That way you guys can all be familiar with it and then we can end the meeting.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So if you like,
Because that's all we have for resolutions, or is?
actually, just real quick, if it's okay, I'd like to go over the CAO report. I have one resolution,
Sure.
just that the CAO report was received by council, and
Okay.
then we can go in camera, and then once we're done, we'll close the meeting for the day. So for the CAO report from December 2022, of course, this was last month, we had the 2 applications for the municipal emergency coordinator. In Ward 1, I had received a request for a reimbursement for Harvey Hankey. There were a couple of council members that looked into a situation for us, and we've since issued a check back to that ratepayer. There was some mowing that had been requested, and unfortunately, I don't know if it was mower acting up or operator situation, but anyway, the mowing wasn't necessarily done as could have been expected, so we've reimbursed that ratepayer for that fee. In Ward 6, we recently had a boil water advisory. We had to shut down the plant, unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances. They were under boil water advisory for the weekend. We've since lifted the advisory, all the testing came back clear, and everything is fine now. I was contacted before Christmas to see if the Kelwood skating rink could be used this winter. They were going to flood the ice and have some people come in and use it. Unfortunately, after investigation, I spoke with a lawyer and a few other people, and it was advised not to allow that to happen due to liability reasons and so on and so forth. So just to give everyone a heads up, unfortunately, we wasn't able to let that happen. We received a letter from the ratepayer in Kelwood asking about the LUD properties in Kelwood and the current parameters of the number of properties within the Kelwood LUD. I've since responded to that ratepayer. According to the Municipal Act, it's actually up to the LUD committee to propose a written request to council, and then for council to discuss the request. So I did respond to the ratepayer, letting them know that information that I found, and that we anticipate receiving a letter to maybe revise the LUD parameters of which properties are involved or included in that area, and then that will be up for council consideration. In doing so, just to give you guys a heads up, the Kelwood LUD, in order for that to happen, council actually needs the majority of ratepayers on board with that request as well. So just to let you guys know, if this is something that council would be willing to entertain, then council would have to hold a public meeting to acknowledge ratepayers, ask for their feedback, answer any questions that they would have. I would suggest that you have it held in Kelwood for the ratepayers to come in and speak, and then move on from there. It does involve also the municipal board and so on and so forth, so even if council were to choose to move forward with these changes, they are governed by other outside sources as well, just to make sure that everything is in compliance. So just to let you know, that could be a lot of meetings and special meetings and things like that. There was a municipal Manitoba administrators meeting that I attended on December 8th. Code of conduct, they mentioned the code of conduct deadline. I apologize, I thought it was March, it's actually April 26th. I wrote it down, yeah. And I also attended, along with a couple of council members last night, there was a meeting for the Neepawa Hospital. It was very informative, and as it was mentioned earlier, that'll be advertised as well if anybody wants to catch up on that. We have our final audit scheduled in March. We had our interim audit completed in December. There's a couple of questions from our auditor about some of our finances there, which I'm just working on now. And our 2023 financial plan, I've started working on that, just getting some information together and compiling the financial plan. That's it.
All right. That December 2022 Chief Administration Officer report has been received as information. Do I have a mover, please? Ronnie? Seconder? All in favor? Carry. Okay, in accordance with section 152 and 3 of the Municipal Act, Council of the RM of Rosedale now move into camera to discuss some legal personal matters at the time beginning 2 o'clock. And further it be resolved that in accordance with this section 83 sub 1D of the Municipal Act, any issues that are discussed are kept confidential until discussed at a regular meeting of council. Do I have a mover? Dave Tudor. Seconder? Earl Burton. All in favor? Carried.